Whenever you're talking to someone, they don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. The best value we can bring for 99.9% of our clients, let's sit down and kind of go over the goals. We want to be able to stay in touch. Our goal as real estate agents is to build and strengthen relationships, right? Also building that relationship and ultimately get them to that closing table, right? That's the goal. Here's the key thing. While you're pre-qualifying and asking a lot of questions, a lot of times there will be a lot of things divulged. The most important part of that is we actually have to do activity. Hello. So today I want to go over what is our lead process that we do on our team. So the 6 steps that we do from initial contact to close. Well, the goal of this is to build relationship, build rapport, be able to see if it makes sense for them and for you as an agent. Also building that relationship and ultimately get them to that closing table, right? That's the goal. So step 1, engagement. How does this conversation come about? What's the engagement? What's the initial activity? Was it from a cold call? Is it an open house? Is it someone at the gas station? Is it someone that's a referral from someone else? You want to break it down and kind of understand how did this initial activity come up? The most important part of that is we actually have to do activity. So we want to do activity. Whatever it is, following up an open house, is it meeting someone at the gas station, at the grocery store? Initial activity is step number 1. Step 2, building rapport. So what do I mean by that? Whenever you're talking to someone, they don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. So what you want to do is build trust. Now, how do you build trust? You ask them questions about themselves. Ask them questions about the day. So, hey, how are you doing? This is Steve from the open house we met a couple of days ago. Just wanted to see how are you doing, first of all, right? How's the family? How was the rest of your weekend? Someone at a gas station. Hey, it's nice meeting you, man. That car is great. Looks like it has great gas mileage. You know, how long have you had it? You want to build trust and build rapport. You want to be genuine, right? At the end of the day, it is a relationship style business. We want to have that relationship from initial touch. Think of it like this. A lot of times, the way the world is, it's very different. If you're coming from care, coming from contribution every time, most people are going to be receptive to that. Step 3, lead identification. So what we want to look for in that conversation, in that organic conversation, is there a lead question mark? And what do I mean by a lead question mark? So lead question mark, as what we call it on our team, is someone, our family or a couple, whoever it is, someone that has a willingness. Now, I'm not saying they're ready to go pre-approved or they're ready to sell. Someone that has a possible lead inside, meaning they're willing to do, at least go to the next step, right? We call that a lead question mark. So if that does come up, you have to kind of figure out, you know what, if this person's asking me, oh, you know what, yeah, my car is great. Oh, you drive in real estate. That's awesome. By the way, how's the market? I got to identify. Is there a potential if there's a lead question mark there, right? In that open house example. Yeah, we know we ended up seeing more homes. Oh, okay, so you guys are in the market to buy. Is that a goal of you and your family? So if there's a lead question mark, we move to the next step. So the 4th step, pre-qualifying. So in that conversation, you hear someone that has a lead question mark. There's some sort of willingness there. Well, now we have to ask discovering questions. We have to figure out 3 main things. Are they willing? Are they ready? And are they able? Now, willingness, sometimes just asking the straight up. So it sounds like you and your family have the goal to buy, right? Or is that the goal for you guys to sell and to move to Florida? Or are you guys thinking about renting and going to Florida? You want to ask questions that you can say, I exhausted that option and I can confirm, yes, there is a willingness. There is a goal by decision makers. Now, readiness. Well, what do I mean by ready? Are they pre-approved ready? Do they have enough equity? Not necessarily what I mean. Mental readiness. Are they ready to move to the next step? I'll give you an example. Someone tells me, you know what, I want to buy a house. I say, great. So sounds like that's the goal. Willing. Great. Yeah. Okay. Well, what type of house? Where do you want to be? And they say, I don't know, somewhere it just has a roof. Somewhere in, Northern Virginia, somewhere in DC, somewhere in Maryland. So what specifically are you looking for? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Now compare that to this. Oh, so you have a goal. Where do you want to be? I actually want to be and insert this city here. I want a townhouse and I want 3 bedrooms. I definitely need a garage. Well, who sounds more mentally ready in that example? Third part of that is ableness. Now, the ableness part of, in terms of financing, it's a different type of questions, right? But it's still important. Ableness, we kind of want to figure out is more timeline. Are they able to move to the next step, or is this going to be a warm, cool, or kind of a hot pipeline? One of the questions you can ask for a buyer: are you guys currently renting now? Do you have a lease in place? Are you month to month? Do you live with family? Do you need to sell a property? Are you relocating? Is it a job relocation? What's the timeline like, right? Now, you can get a little bit more depending on your comfort level and your skill, right? So tell me a little bit about, maybe some of your finances. What are your thoughts, or what things you think may not allow you to move to the next step? This is kind of discovery questions where you can kind of pull out some information without being too pushy or too private, because it is a confidential thing when we are talking finances and the lender. Okay, so now we're at step 6. Now this is one of the ones that either makes it or breaks it, right? So when you're able to have a pre-qualification, you're definitely can say, yes, I checked the boxes, willing, ready, and ableness. Now you want them to move to the next step. Well, what is the next step? The best value we can bring for 99.9% of our clients. Let's sit down and kind of go over the goals. Let's go over the game plan. Even if they bought before, the market changes so much. The processes have changed so much. We as agents will do more transactions than one person will do in their lifetime. Unless they're like the super high and they're, buying apartments or stuff like that. But at the same time, even with that, we're so involved, embedded in our business, we remember a lot more things. So the value we present to them is we want to sit down with them. We can do a Google Meet, Zoom, things like that, because things are a little bit different nowadays. But that is the best value, because at the same time, we're face to face, which always raises that relationship up higher, right? It converts it a lot higher. The strength of a face to face is always going to be higher than a phone call. Well, how do we do that? We want to present a value of why it's important to sit down with us. Here's the key thing. While you're pre-qualifying and asking a lot of questions, a lot of times there will be a lot of things divulged, right? For example, oh no, we're renting now because we've never owned before. Oh, you know what? I'm not too sure in terms of where I want to be because I'm kind of concerned about what the interest rates are. Those are things in that pre-qualification questioning that's going to come up. Well, those are great values to be able to use to help advise why we should sit down. Hey, Steve, you know what? Let's do this. Let's sit down, kind of go over what makes sense for you, what doesn't make sense for you, right? Let's talk about something called price, size, location, which it's a great concern. A lot of people feel the same way. It's a great concern that, you're worried about where you can afford with the interest rates. Well, let's talk about those options. You mentioned about renting. You're probably nervous. It's a big step to go from renting to buying, but it's a great step. I'm sure you have a lot of questions on the process and everything. Well, let's sit down and kind of go over those processes. Let's go over those questions and let's set up the game plan. So once you've mastered that value to close, you should be able to sit down with the client and help them with the next step. And at the same time, we're doing our due diligence by helping them along the way. Best way I can always explain to a lot of agents is insert yourself into their shoes. If I was a first-time home buyer, I would be very scared with this uncertainty sometimes in this market. Sometimes if the market is super hot where you live, it's always going to be, I know my cousin's brother, he just offered 50,000 and they lost. Those are things that people are worried about, right? Sellers, the market is different. Well, when's the best time to sell? Well, let's sit down and talk about it and see how it aligns with your goals. Once you can master a great value to close, you should have a great conversion ratio getting the client to the next level. So another little tip bonus. So what happens in that step where I'm talking to them and there is no lead question mark, right? They didn't, I had a great conversation with someone. We built rapport. There was, I talked about the gas mileage. I talked about, in the open house, what they did. They watched football, but there is no lead question mark. So here's the key. Doesn't mean they're not as important. They're just as important. You want to be able to stay in touch. Our goal as real estate agents is to build and strengthen relationships, right? So for example, hey, you know what? That's awesome. I'm glad to hear you guys were able to enjoy the game this past weekend. Let's do this. Let's stay in touch in case something comes up. Always provide you just for information, right, on how the market's doing. As a homeowner, I'm sure that's a great value to you. It affects you and generational wealth. What's a good email address for you? What's a good telephone number for you? So you want to be able to still engage and still what we call feed the database. Feed them in there so we can be able to strengthen and build, continue to build that relationship. Remember, consistency, empathy, and coming from care is what transforms conversations to relationships.